"We're terminating you effective immediately. Security will escort you out," the CEO's son said on his first day as CEO, not even looking up from his laptop. I handed over my badge calmly. "I want to do this right. Tell your father the board meeting in 3 hours should be interesting." I kept my voice steady, professional. He had no idea I owned 72% of the company. Logan Bramwell finally looked up. His face was a painting of confusion, trying to decide whether to become amusement or alarm. He settled on amusement, which told me everything I needed to know about his intelligence level. "Right," he said, smirking. "Security. I'm Raymond Cole, 63 years old, former COO of ColeDynaTech, though I suppose now I'm just former employee, at least in Logan's tiny understanding of corporate structure. I spent 35 years building this company from a struggling manufacturing outfit into a mid-sized tech powerhouse. I did it quietly, methodically, the way an engineer approaches a complex problem. Break it into components, solve each piece, integrate the solution. Logan Bramwell looked like a walking LinkedIn post with hair gel. 28 years old, fresh from an executive MBA program that taught him how to say synergy 17 different ways, but apparently skipped the chapter on due diligence. His father, Arthur Bramwell, had brought him in as CEO 3 months ago after I'd supposedly transitioned to a lesser role. The board had approved it. I'd even signed some papers. What nobody knew was that those papers were meaningless theater. You can't transition someone out of a position they never actually held. I'd been COO in title, but in ownership, I was something else entirely. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. I recognized both of them, Dave and Patrick. Good guys. They looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Cole," Dave said quietly, "we need to escort you out." Of course. I picked up my worn leather briefcase. Inside were my car keys, my wallet, and a ham sandwich I'd made that morning. I hadn't brought anything else because I hadn't needed to. Logan was already back to his laptop, typing something with the aggressive confidence of someone who thinks firing people makes him powerful. I walked between Dave and Patrick through the hallways of ColeDynaTech's main building. The walls were that industrial modern style, exposed ductwork painted matte black, glass conference rooms with names like Innovation Station and Breakthrough Bay. Arthur had insisted on the redesign 2 years ago. I'd approved the budget because I didn't care what the walls looked like as long as the quarterly reports stayed healthy. We passed the engineering department. A few heads turned. Most people kept working. They'd probably heard rumors. In a company this size, everyone always heard rumors. "Sorry about this, Mr. Cole," Patrick muttered as we reached the lobby. "Don't be. You're doing your job." I meant it. The lobby had a fountain. Actual running water, glass sculptures, the whole 9 yards. Arthur loved these visible displays of success. I'd always thought it was wasteful, but again, not my battle. The company could afford a decorative fountain. Outside, the November rain hammered the parking lot in cold, heavy sheets. Maine weather, the kind of rain that doesn't fall so much as assault you. The sky was the color of old concrete. My truck sat in the visitor parking area. They'd already moved it from my reserved spot, efficient. I unlocked it, climbed in, and sat for a moment in the driver's seat, listening to rain pound the roof. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife, Linda. "They're planning something big today, be careful." I texted back, "Already happened, on schedule." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Come home safe." I started the truck and pulled out of the parking lot, watching ColeDynaTech's sleek glass building shrink in my rearview mirror. The company I'd built. The company I'd secretly owned majority shares in for more than 3 decades. The company I was about to take back. My route home took me through the industrial part of town. Old brick buildings, chain-link fences, trucks moving between warehouses. This was the real Maine, not the postcard version with lighthouses and lobster boats. This was where things got made, where people worked actual jobs that left them tired and satisfied at the end of the day. I'd grown up in a neighborhood like this. My father had worked in a machine shop. My mother had been a bookkeeper for a lumber company. They'd taught me two things: work hard and pay attention to details. Everything else in my life had been a variation on those two lessons. I'd met Linda in college, engineering school. She'd been in the mathematics department, running circles around classmates who assumed a pretty blonde couldn't possibly understand differential equations. She'd married me despite my complete lack of charm or money, and we'd built a life together. One son, Eric, our only child. The thought of Eric made my jaw tighten. I pulled into my driveway. The house was small, a 1960s ranch style with vinyl siding and a detached garage. We'd bought it 30 years ago and never saw a reason to move. It was paid off, maintained, functional. Everything a house should be. Linda opened the door as I walked up the steps. She was wearing jeans and one of my old flannel shirts, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. At 61, she still looked like the girl I'd married, just with some silver in her hair and laugh lines around her eyes. "How bad?" she asked. "Logan fired me. Arthur doesn't know yet. The board meeting is at 2. She stepped aside to let me in. The house smelled like coffee and something baking. Probably her oatmeal cookies. Stress baking was her tell. "Eric called," she said quietly. I stopped taking off my coat. "What did he want?" "Money, same as always." Her voice was flat, tired. I told him no. He said some things. "What things?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "It doesn't matter." "Linda, what things?" She met my eyes. He said, "Starting today, Mom, you eat your own food. Stop thinking I'm going to support some old woman." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. I felt something cold settle in my chest, something heavy and final. "He said that to you. He was angry. You know how he gets when he's angry. That's not an excuse. I know." She touched my arm. "But we have bigger problems today. Focus on the board meeting. Deal with Eric later." She was right. She was always right. I hung up my coat and followed her into the kitchen. The cookies were cooling on a wire rack. I took one, still warm, and bit into it. Oatmeal, raisins, just a hint of cinnamon. Perfect. "The papers are ready?" I asked. "In your study. Everything you need. Dave Brennan from legal called this morning. He confirmed all the documentation is airtight. No loopholes, no challenges. You own 72% through the holding structure. It's been verified by 3 independent law firms." I'd spent 35 years building that holding structure, buying shares slowly, carefully, through different entities and trusts. Never enough at once to trigger disclosure requirements, always staying just below the radar. It had cost me a fortune in legal fees and patience, but it had worked. ColeDynaTech thought it was controlled by the Bramwell family and a diffuse group of small shareholders. They had no idea that most of those small shareholders were entities I controlled. The beauty of corporate law is that it rewards attention to detail. "What about Eric's situation?" Linda asked, pouring me coffee. "What about it?" "Ray. He's still our son." "Is he?" I took the coffee. Black, hot, strong. "Because our son wouldn't have said what he said to you. Our son wouldn't have spent the last 2 years treating us like ATMs with annoying voices attached. He's confused. Jessa has him twisted around." Jessa Bramwell, Eric's wife, daughter of a Florida real estate development family with more money than sense and even less class. She'd married Eric 3 years ago in a ceremony that cost more than our house. Her family had paid for most of it while looking down their noses at the quaint Maine simplicity of our lives. Eric had changed after that wedding. Slowly at first, then faster. The calls became less frequent. The visits became obligations. The requests for money became demands. Last month, I'd discovered he'd convinced Linda to sign some routine financial paperwork. She'd thought it was insurance documents. It wasn't. It had transferred control of some accounts I'd set up for her years ago. Technically legal. Morally repugnant. "Eric made his choices," I said. "I'm done pretending they don't matter." Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. After the board meeting? After the board meeting. I took my coffee to my study. The room was small, lined with bookshelves, dominated by an old oak desk I'd bought at an estate sale decades ago. On the desk were 3 thick binders. I opened the first one. Inside were stock certificates, legal documents, transfer records. 35 years of careful acquisition, all organized chronologically. The second binder contained corporate bylaws, shareholder agreements, voting procedures. The third held financial records, proving I had the resources to back up my ownership claims. Together, these binders represented complete control of ColeDynaTech. I checked my watch. 11:15. The board meeting was at 2. I had time. I pulled out my phone and called Dave Brennan, my attorney. "Ray," he answered on the first ring. "You ready for this?" "Been ready for 35 years. Walk me through it one more time." He did. The procedure was simple. I would attend the board meeting as a shareholder. I would present my documentation. I would call for a vote on executive leadership. With 72% ownership, I would win any vote. I would terminate Logan Bramwell as CEO. I would offer Arthur Bramwell the option to resign gracefully or be removed for cause based on recent ethical violations I'd documented. "The documentation on Arthur is solid?" I asked. "Solid enough. He's been pressuring employees to invest personal money in a side venture he's running. Not illegal, but definitely unethical. Shareholders won't like it. He'll resign rather than face that fight." "Good. Ray, are you sure about this? There's no going back once you reveal the ownership structure." "I'm sure. What about your son? This affects him too." "My son chose his side. That's not my problem." Dave was quiet. Then, "All right, I'll be there at 1:30 to help with setup. Good luck." "Don't need luck. I need documentation. Already have that." I hung up and sat back in my chair. Through the window, I could see my small backyard. A bird feeder hung from the oak tree. Linda kept it filled. Chickadees and nuthatches visited regularly. Simple pleasures. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Dad, it's Eric. Need to talk. Important." I stared at the message. Charming. My son apparently thinks texting from his wife's phone makes him mysterious instead of just annoying. I didn't respond. Another text came through. "It's about Mom. Please call." My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I set the phone down. If it was actually important, he'd call. If he was trying to manipulate me, which seemed far more likely, he could wait. The phone rang. "Eric." I answered. "What?" "Dad. Hey, listen, I know things have been rough between us, but I really need to talk to you about Mom. Can I come by?" "What about her?" "Not on the phone. Can I come by? I'm like 10 minutes away." I glanced at Linda through the doorway. She was in the kitchen, wiping down counters, stress cleaning now instead of stress baking. "Fine. 10 minutes. "Thanks, Dad. I really appreciate it. I'll be right there." I sat there, staring at my phone, that cold weight in my chest growing heavier. Charming. My son apparently thinks gratitude is a tool for manipulation instead of an actual emotion. I stood and walked back to the kitchen. "Eric's coming over." Linda stopped wiping. "Why?" "Says it's about you. Says it's important." "Ray." "I know, but we might as well hear what he has to say." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll make more coffee." "He doesn't deserve your coffee." "It's not for him." I almost smiled. Exactly 8 minutes later, a Tesla pulled into our driveway. Eric's car, or rather Jessa's car that Eric drove. Sleek, silver, expensive. It looked ridiculous parked in front of our modest ranch house. Eric climbed out. He was wearing dark jeans and a leather jacket, designer sunglasses despite the overcast sky. My son looked like he was auditing for a cologne commercial instead of visiting his parents. I opened the door before he could knock. "Dad." He pulled off the sunglasses and smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Thanks for seeing me. You said it's about your mother. Yeah. Can I come in? I stepped aside. Eric walked past me into the house, glancing around like he'd never seen the place before. We hadn't redecorated in 20 years. Nothing had changed, but he looked at everything like he was appraising it for resale value. Hey, Mom, he called toward the kitchen. Linda appeared in the doorway. Eric, you look great. What do you need? I asked, cutting off whatever false pleasantries he was building toward. Eric's smile faded. Right. Straight to business. That's very you, Dad. I have somewhere to be at 2. Talk. He sat down on our couch uninvited. Okay. So, Jessa and I have been talking, and we're concerned about Mom, specifically about her financial security. Her financial security? Yeah. She's getting older, and we want to make sure she's protected. You know, in case something happens to you. What exactly do you think is going to happen to me? Dad, you're 63. People die, get sick, whatever. We just want Mom taken care of. I crossed my arms. Your mother is fine. But is she, though? I mean, no offense, but you guys live pretty modestly. This house is old. The truck you drive is ancient. What happens if there's a medical emergency? Do you have the resources to cover that? Linda stepped forward. Eric, we're fine. Your father and I have been managing our finances for 40 years. We don't need you to worry about us. I'm not worrying, Mom. I'm planning. There's a difference. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, giving us what I supposed he thought was a sincere expression. Look, I talked to Jessa's financial advisor, and he said the smartest thing would be to consolidate some assets now, while everyone's healthy. That way, if something does happen, there's no legal mess, no probate, no fights. It's all clean. Consolidate assets, I repeated. Meaning what? Meaning transfer some things into a family trust that we all control. You, Mom, me, equal partners. That way nobody can take advantage of anyone. Who's taking advantage of anyone? Eric hesitated. Nobody. Yet. But Dad, you know how these things go. You get older, someone starts circling. A scam artist. A caretaker who gets handsy with the checkbook. I've seen it happen. Jessa's grandfather got taken for $200,000 by his nurse. I don't have a nurse. Not now. But eventually. And when that time comes, wouldn't it be better if the assets were protected? Come on, Dad. You're a smart guy. This is just good planning. I looked at Linda. She looked back at me. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the same math I was running. Eric wasn't here out of concern. He was here because he wanted control. Specifically, he wanted control of assets he thought he could access now instead of waiting for inheritance. No, I said. Eric blinked. No? No. We're not consolidating anything. We're not creating any trusts. We're not giving you equal control over anything. Thank you for your concern, but we'll manage our own finances. Dad, I'm trying to help you. No, you're trying to help yourself. There's a difference. His face changed. The fake concern dropped away, replaced by irritation. You know what? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're too stubborn to see when someone's trying to do something good for you. You'd rather sit here in your little house with your old truck and pretend everything's fine while the world moves on without you. The world can move wherever it wants, I said. I'm fine right here. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone who peaked 30 years ago and has been coasting on fumes ever since. Linda made a small sound. I held up a hand to stop her from speaking. Is that what you think? I asked Eric. It's what I know. Dad, you're a dinosaur. Your job is gone. Your relevance is gone. And instead of accepting that and planning for the future, you're being proud and stupid. I'm giving you a chance to secure Mom's life, and you're too blind to take it. Secure her life with what? The accounts you already convinced her to sign over to you? Eric went still. Yeah, I said. I know about that. The insurance paperwork she signed last month. The paperwork that transferred assets I'd set aside for her into accounts you control. That was for her protection. Was it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like theft with a legal signature. It's not theft, if she agreed to it. She agreed because you lied about what she was signing. Eric stood up. I didn't lie. I simplified. There's a difference. Get out of my house. Dad. Out. Now. He grabbed his sunglasses, jamming them back on his face. You're making a mistake. I'm the only person looking out for your future, and you're throwing it away because of pride. Eric, Linda said quietly, please go. He looked at her, and for just a second, I saw something crack in his expression, something that might have been regret or shame. Then it was gone, replaced by cold anger. Fine, but don't come crying to me when everything falls apart, and don't expect me to keep supporting some old woman who can't plan for her own future. He walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Linda and I stood in the sudden silence. The house felt empty, hollow, like something vital had been pulled out of it. Ray, Linda said softly. I know. He's really gone, isn't he? The boy we raised. He's just gone. I wanted to disagree. I wanted to tell her Eric would come around, that this was temporary, that family was thicker than whatever poison Jessa had dripped into his ear. But I couldn't. Because Linda was right. The son we'd raised would never have spoken to his mother that way, would never have schemed to steal from his own parents, would never have confused manipulation with love. That person didn't exist anymore, if he ever had. I need to get ready for the board meeting, I said. Linda nodded. She didn't try to stop me. She just watched as I went back to my study, closed the door, and sat down at my desk with those 3 heavy binders. I opened my laptop and started reviewing the presentation I'd prepared, slide by slide, document by document, building the case that would destroy Arthur Bramwell's empire and rip ColeDynaTech away from the family that thought they owned it. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was about to commit corporate patricide against the Bramwells on the same day my own son had essentially disowned me. Charming. My life apparently thinks symmetry is a type of cruelty. At 1:15, I loaded the binders into my truck and drove back to ColeDynaTech. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the sky was still that same concrete gray. The parking lot was full. The board meeting would be well attended. I parked in visitor parking again. Dave Brennan's car was already there, along with several others I recognized. Board members, shareholders, a few executives from the management team. Inside, the lobby fountain was still running. Someone had added fresh flowers to the planters. Everything looked normal, professional, successful. The conference room was on the 3rd floor. I took the elevator up, carrying my binders. Dave met me at the entrance. Ready? He asked. Born ready. They're going to fight this. Let them. We walked into the conference room together, 20 chairs around a long table. Most were already filled. Arthur Bramwell sat at the head, looking confident and comfortable. Logan sat to his right, scrolling through his phone. When I walked in, every head turned. Logan looked up from his phone. His confident smirk slipped. What the hell is he doing here? Logan demanded. Attending the board meeting as a shareholder, Dave said calmly. Mr. Cole has proper documentation and standing. He's not a shareholder, Arthur said. He owns a negligible amount of stock. Actually, I said, setting my binders down on the table with a heavy thud. I own substantially more than that. The room went quiet. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Dave sat next to me. This meeting was supposed to address quarterly performance and strategic planning, Arthur said carefully. I'm not sure what you think you're accomplishing here, Raymond. I'm accomplishing a correction, I said. One that's been 35 years in the making. I opened the first binder and pulled out a stack of documentation. As of this morning, I control 72% of ColeDynaTech through a series of holding companies, trusts, and direct ownership. All acquired legally, all documented appropriately, all verified by independent audit. Arthur's face went pale. Logan stopped looking at his phone. "That's impossible," Arthur said. "It's very possible. I've been doing it since 1990, slow, steady, careful, buying shares whenever they became available, always staying just under disclosure thresholds until I had accumulated enough to matter. Then I kept going." "You're lying." I slid the documentation across the table. "Check for yourself. Stock certificates, transfer records, corporate filings. Everything's in order. You can verify it with your own lawyers, but I suspect you'll find I'm correct." A board member named Patricia Chen picked up one of the documents. She was a finance professor at the state university, smart and thorough. She read in silence for nearly a minute. "These look legitimate," she said quietly. "Of course they're legitimate," I said. "I don't do sloppy work." Arthur grabbed the papers from her, his hands shaking slightly. Logan leaned over, reading alongside his father. The room was silent except for the rustle of paper and the quiet hum of the HVAC system. "If this is real," Arthur said slowly, "why reveal it now? Why wait all these years?" "Because I was content to let you run the company as long as you ran it well. You did. Arthur, you're a competent CEO. Under your leadership, ColeDynaTech grew steadily. Profits increased. Employees were treated reasonably. I had no reason to interfere." "So what changed?" I looked directly at Logan. "You brought your unqualified son in as CEO. You pushed me into a meaningless transition role. And this morning, that unqualified son fired me. So now I'm interfering." Logan's face flushed red. "You can't do this. I already did it. 35 years ago, I started doing it. This morning, your father finished it by making a strategic blunder, and now I'm correcting that blunder." I pulled out another set of documents. "As majority shareholder, I'm calling for an immediate vote on executive leadership. Specifically, I'm proposing we remove Logan Bramwell as CEO and reinstall competent management." "You can't vote yourself," Arthur said desperately. "That's a conflict of interest." "It's not. Check the bylaws. A majority shareholder can vote on any issue before the board. Patricia, I trust you've verified the documentation is authentic?" Patricia nodded slowly. "It appears to be, yes." "Then let's vote. All in favor of removing Logan Bramwell as CEO of ColeDynaTech, indicate now." I raised my hand. Dave raised his hand. After a long hesitation, Patricia raised her hand. 2 other board members followed. "All opposed?" Arthur and 3 other board members raised their hands. Logan raised his own hand, which would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. "Motion carries," I said. "Logan, you're fired, effective immediately. Please surrender your laptop, phone, badge, and any other company property to security before you leave the building." Logan stood up so fast, his chair fell backward. "This is illegal. I'll sue you. I'll sue all of you." "Sue away," I said. "You'll lose. Everything I've done is documented and legal. Dave, please ensure security is standing by to escort Mr. Bramwell out." Dave pulled out his phone and sent a text. 30 seconds later, the conference room door opened. Dave and Patrick, the same security guards from this morning, stepped in. Logan looked from them to me, to his father. "Dad, do something." Arthur sat frozen, still holding the stock documentation. His face had gone from pale to gray. He looked like a man who'd just realized his entire world was built on sand. "Dad!" "Go," Arthur said quietly. "We'll figure this out later." Logan grabbed his laptop and phone. He pointed at me as he walked toward the door. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," I said. "Goodbye, Logan." Dave and Patrick escorted him out. The door closed behind them. The remaining board members sat in stunned silence. I turned to Arthur. "We need to discuss your position." "My position." "As CEO, there are some concerns I'd like to address, specifically regarding your recent activities pressuring employees to invest in your personal ventures. Arthur's jaw tightened. That's private business. It becomes company business when you use your position as CEO to coerce participation. I have documentation, emails, recorded conversations, testimony from 3 employees who felt they had no choice but to invest unless they wanted to damage their careers. That's a lie. Patricia, I've sent you the full file. Please review it and advise the board on whether this constitutes grounds for removal. Patricia pulled out her tablet and started reading. The silence stretched. Arthur watched her, his confidence crumbling with every second that passed. Finally, Patricia looked up. This is concerning. If accurate, it violates multiple ethical guidelines and potentially opens the company to liability. It's not accurate, Arthur said. Raymond's manipulating information to make this look worse than it is. Then you'll have no problem with an independent investigation, I said. I'm proposing we place you on administrative leave pending a full review of these allegations. Patricia, can you recommend an appropriate investigative firm? I can. But Arthur, if you'd prefer to simply resign, that might be cleaner. Avoid a public investigation, maintain your reputation, part ways professionally. Arthur stared at the table. I watched him process the options, fight and lose publicly, or surrender and preserve some dignity. I'd like to review the documents more thoroughly before making any decisions, he said carefully. Of course. Take your time. Dave, Patricia, and I will wait. We sat there while Arthur read through the file I'd compiled. It had taken me 6 months to gather all of it, 6 months of listening, documenting, building an airtight case. The pressure tactics were real. Arthur had genuinely crossed ethical lines, but he'd done it subtly, carefully, in ways that were hard to prove without significant effort. I'd put in that effort. After 20 minutes, Arthur set down the tablet. If I resign, what happens? You leave with severance, references, and dignity. The board issues a statement thanking you for your years of service. We don't publicize the reasons. You move on to your next chapter with your reputation largely intact. And if I fight? We investigate publicly. The employees testify. The media covers it. Your reputation is destroyed, and you still lose because I own 72% of the company. The outcome is inevitable. The only variable is how much damage you take getting there. Arthur looked at each board member in turn. Nobody met his eyes. They all knew the math. I'd won before the meeting even started. I resign, Arthur said quietly. Effective end of business today. Effective immediately, I corrected. End of business today for you was 10 seconds ago. His face hardened. You're enjoying this. No, I'm correcting it. There's a difference. I pulled out one more document. Your resignation letter. Dave prepared it this morning. Sign it and we're done here. Arthur took the pen I offered. His hand trembled slightly as he signed his name. He slid the document back to me without looking up. I built this company, he said. No, I built this company. You managed it, and you did a decent job until you didn't. Now it's time for someone else. Who? You? Temporarily, until we find a permanent CEO who actually knows what they're doing. I stood up. This meeting is adjourned. Patricia, can you ensure the necessary paperwork is filed with the state? Dave will coordinate with legal to make sure everything's compliant. I picked up my binders and walked toward the door. Behind me, I could hear Arthur still sitting at the table, breathing hard, processing what had just happened. The elevator ride down was quiet. Dave stood next to me, also silent. When we reached the lobby, he finally spoke. That was brutal. It was necessary. Your son's going to hear about this. I expect he will. Ray, is there any chance of reconciliation there? I thought about Eric's words earlier. About Linda sitting in our kitchen, looking tired and hurt. About 34 years of raising a child who'd become someone I didn't recognize. No, I said. I don't think there is. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. Eric and Jessa are attempting to enter the house. They claim they need documents. I called the security service you arranged. They're here. I showed Dave the text. Go, he said. I'll handle the paperwork here. I ran to my truck. While you're here, hit the hype button. Don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? The drive home took 12 minutes. Every red light felt like an hour. Rain had started again, heavier now, drumming against the windshield. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. When I pulled into my street, I saw them immediately. Eric's Tesla parked half on the curb, Jessa's white Range Rover blocking my driveway, and 2 security vehicles, one from the firm I'd retained last week. I'd known this moment was coming. After Eric's performance at the house earlier, after discovering what he'd done with Linda's accounts, I'd made arrangements. Private security, not police, because involving police would create records and drama. Private security could handle situations quietly, professionally, with legal backing. I parked on the street and walked up the driveway. Eric and Jessa were on the porch, arguing with 2 security officers. Linda stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face pale but determined. You can't keep us out, Jessa was saying. Her voice was high, sharp, entitled. This is family property. We have rights. You have 0 rights to this property, one of the security officers said calmly. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the bearing of someone who'd done real military service. His name tag read, Phillips. The homeowner has explicitly denied you access. The homeowner is my husband's mother. She's being manipulated by him. Jessa pointed at Linda. She doesn't know what she's agreeing to. I know exactly what I'm agreeing to, Linda said quietly. I'm agreeing that you don't enter my home. Mrs. Cole, let's be reasonable, Eric said. He was using his smooth voice, the one he'd developed after business school. We just need some documents. That's it. 10 minutes. Then we'll go. What documents? I asked, walking up behind them. Everyone turned. Eric's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, guilt, anger. He settled on indignation. Dad. Good. Tell Mom we're not trying to cause problems. We just need access to some financial records. What financial records? Records related to the family trust we discussed. Since you refused to set one up properly, we need to at least document what exists, for estate planning purposes. There is no family trust. I told you that 2 hours ago. There should be, and since you're being stubborn about it, we need to at least understand what assets exist. Come on, Dad. This is reasonable. You know it's reasonable. I walked past him to stand next to Linda. Officers, thank you for responding. My wife and I would like these individuals removed from our property. You're making a mistake, Jessa said. Her face was flushed, her blonde hair falling out of its careful styling. We're trying to help you and you're treating us like criminals. I'm treating you like what you are, unwelcome guests who refuse to leave when asked. Fine. Eric pulled his phone from his pocket. If we're unwelcome, then I guess we're done. The whole family, done. I hope you're happy, Dad. You just destroyed your relationship with your only son over nothing. I didn't destroy anything. You did that years ago. I just stopped pretending otherwise. Jessa grabbed Eric's arm. Come on. We don't need them. Let them rot in their little house with their little lives. They walked back to their vehicles. Eric climbed into the Tesla without looking back. Jessa paused at her Range Rover, looking back at me with pure venom in her eyes. You'll regret this, she said. I regret a lot of things. This isn't one of them. She got in her vehicle and reversed aggressively, tires squealing. Eric followed. Both vehicles disappeared down the street. Phillips approached me. Mr. Cole, that was handled. But I should mention, the woman made several threatening statements before you arrived. Not overtly violent, but concerning. Things about lawyers, about consequences, about making you pay. Noted. Thank you. We'll maintain periodic patrols of the neighborhood for the next week. per your contract. If they return, call immediately. I will. Phillips and his partner left. Linda and I stood on the porch watching the rain. That was Eric, she said softly. Yes. Our son. Yes. I don't know him anymore. Neither do I. We went inside. The house felt colder than it should have. Linda made tea. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at nothing. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from board members, from colleagues, from people who'd heard about the board meeting. The news was spreading fast. One message stood out. From Arthur Bramwell. You think you've won. You haven't. My family built ColeDynaTech. We won't let you destroy it. I didn't respond. Another message, from a number I didn't recognize. Dad thinks he's so smart. Wait until he realizes what he's lost. E. Eric was texting from yet another number, probably Jessa's backup phone. I blocked it. Linda sat across from me, cradling her tea. What happens now? I run the company. Find a real CEO. Make sure it stays profitable and ethical. I meant with Eric. Nothing happens with Eric. He made his choice. Ray, he's our son. He's a stranger who happens to share our DNA. Those aren't the same thing. Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't argue. We both knew I was right. That evening, I got a call from Patricia Chen. Ray, you should know, Logan's been calling board members. He's trying to organize a challenge to your ownership documentation. Let him try. The documentation is airtight. He's also been posting on social media, calling you a corporate raider, accusing you of elder abuse, the usual scorched earth tactics. Can you document all of it? We may need it later. Already doing that. Also, several news outlets have reached out asking for comment. Do you want to issue a statement? No statement. Refer them to our lawyer. This is a private corporate matter. Understood. One more thing. Arthur called me earlier. He wanted to know if there was any way to reverse the resignation. There isn't. That's what I told him. Ray, you need to be prepared. The Bramwells are not going to accept this quietly. I know. Do you? Because I've been watching Logan's social media posts, and they're getting increasingly unhinged. He's talking about justice, about retribution. It's concerning. Noted. Thank you, Patricia. I hung up and opened Logan's social media accounts. Patricia was right. The posts were escalating. First post: forced out of my position by corporate manipulation. Stay tuned for the full story. Second post: when old men cling to power they can't handle anymore, companies suffer. ColeDynaTech deserves better. Third post: Raymond Cole is a parasite who spent decades secretly stealing what my family built. This isn't over. The comments were predictable, half supporting him, half calling him entitled. Several people pointing out that if I'd been buying stock legally for 35 years, that wasn't stealing, that was investing. I closed the apps. Social media fury was temporary. Legal documentation was permanent. At 8 that evening, Dave Brennan called. We have a problem. My stomach tightened. What kind of problem? Logan filed an injunction request. He's claiming your ownership documentation is fraudulent. The hearing is scheduled for next week. On what grounds? He's alleging you coerced shareholders into selling, manipulated corporate records, and engaged in a long-term conspiracy to defraud the Bramwell family. That's nonsense. Of course it's nonsense, but it's nonsense we have to address in court, which means legal fees, public scrutiny, and time. How strong is his case? Weak. Very weak. But Ray, this is going to get messy. You need to be prepared for that. I am prepared. Are you? Because messy in corporate litigation means discovery, depositions, financial records going public, every email, every conversation, every transaction for the last 35 years examined under a microscope. Let them examine. Everything I did was legal. I believe you. But you should also know, Logan's hired Fletcher and Associates. They're aggressive. They're going to make your life hell for as long as they can bill hours. I rubbed my eyes. Fine. Do what you need to do. I want this handled quickly and decisively. We'll try. But Ray, court proceedings don't work on our timeline. They work on the court's timeline. After he hung up, I sat in my study and looked at those 3 binders again. 35 years of careful work. 35 years of following every rule, documenting every transaction, staying clean. And now, Logan Bramwell, who'd been CEO for all of 3 months, thought he could challenge it. Let him try. The next morning, I drove to ColeDynaTech at 6. The building was mostly empty. I used my access card, which surprisingly still worked, and went up to what had been Arthur's office. It was exactly as he'd left it. Personal photos still on the desk, plaques on the walls, a coffee mug, half full and growing mold. I spent 2 hours going through files, looking for anything relevant to the transition. What I found was enlightening. Arthur had been planning to push me out for over a year. There were emails to consultants discussing succession planning and phase-out strategies. There were memos about reducing my authority. There were even draft announcements for my forced retirement. He'd been patient, methodical, smart. Not smart enough to check who actually owned the company, but smart in other ways. I photographed everything and sent it to Dave. Documentary evidence that my firing wasn't sudden, wasn't justified, wasn't anything except a power play that had backfired spectacularly. At 9, employees started arriving. They stared at me as I walked through the halls. Some nodded, some avoided eye contact. Everyone had heard the news. I called a company-wide meeting for 10. The cafeteria was the only space large enough to hold everyone. 243 employees. I'd memorized that number years ago. I knew most of their names. When I walked in, the room went silent. "I'm going to be brief," I said, standing at the front with no microphone, just projecting my voice. "Yesterday, I assumed temporary control of ColeDynaTech as its majority shareholder. Arthur Bramwell resigned. Logan Bramwell was terminated. Some of you have heard rumors about why this happened. I'm here to give you facts." I spent 10 minutes outlining the situation. Not all the details, but enough. The ownership structure, the ethical violations, the decision to remove leadership that had lost its way. "Some of you are worried about your jobs," I continued. "Don't be. Nobody is being laid off. Nobody's salary is being cut. Your benefits remain unchanged. What's changing is that this company will be run by people who actually know what they're doing." A hand went up. Michael Torres, one of the senior engineers. "Who's going to be CEO?" "Temporarily, me. Permanently, someone competent. We're beginning a search immediately. Patricia Chen is heading the search committee. If you have recommendations, talk to her." Another hand. Sarah Lee, from accounting. "What about Logan's lawsuits? People are saying he's going to sue." "Logan can sue all he wants. Everything I've done is legal and documented. The company is secure. Your jobs are secure. Focus on your work, and let the lawyers handle the legal noise." More questions. I answered them honestly, directly, without corporate jargon or evasion. After 30 minutes, the tension in the room had visibly decreased. As I left the cafeteria, several employees stopped me to shake my hand or thank me. They'd been worried. Arthur's leadership had been increasingly erratic in recent months. Logan's brief tenure had been a disaster. People were relieved. Back in my temporary office, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. "Raymond Cole." "Mr. Cole, this is Marcus Fletcher from Fletcher & Associates. I represent Logan Bramwell in his action against you. I have a lawyer. Talk to him. I'd prefer to talk to you. Save everyone some time and money." "I'm listening." "My client is willing to settle. Drop the CEO termination, reinstate him to a senior executive position, and he'll withdraw the injunction request." "No." "Mr. Cole, litigation is expensive and time-consuming. Even if you win, you lose. Public battles damage companies. Stock prices fluctuate. Employees get nervous. You seem like a smart man. Smart men avoid unnecessary conflict. Smart men also don't cave to threats from unqualified children. My client is hardly a child." Your client was CEO for 90 days and accomplished nothing except proving he was unqualified. Tell him the answer is no. Tell him the documentation is airtight. And tell him if he continues with this frivolous lawsuit, I'll countersue for legal fees and harassment." Fletcher was quiet for a moment. "You're making a mistake." "So I've been told, repeatedly. Yet somehow I keep being right." I hung up. Dave called 5 minutes later. "Fletcher just called me. Said you were unreasonable." I was clear. "Ray, he's going to escalate." "Let him. We've got documentation. We've got law on our side. He's got a spoiled kid with a bruised ego." "There's something else. I got a call from Eric's lawyer." My stomach dropped. "Eric has a lawyer?" "Apparently. Guy named Richard Holbrook, estate planning specialist. He's claiming you've been financially abusing your wife, manipulating her into signing documents, isolating her from family support." "That's insane." "I know. But Ray, he's building a case for some kind of guardianship or financial oversight, claiming Linda's not competent to make her own decisions because you've been controlling her. Linda is completely competent. She has her own accounts, her own decisions. She signed those papers for Eric because he lied about what they were. Can she testify to that? Of course she can. Then we need a deposition, soon, before Eric's lawyer builds this into something bigger." I closed my eyes. My son was now actively trying to paint me as an abuser. The same son who'd stolen from his mother was accusing me of manipulation. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so vicious. "Set it up," I said. "Linda will testify. I'll testify. We'll bury this nonsense before it grows." "Ray, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get personal, really personal. Eric's going to attack your character, your marriage, your competence. Are you ready for that?" I thought about Eric's face on our porch, the contempt, the entitlement, the complete absence of love or respect. "I'm ready." That afternoon I went home. Linda was in the garden, despite the rain, pulling weeds with fierce concentration. Stress gardening. Another one of her tells. "Eric hired a lawyer," I said. She stopped pulling weeds. "I know." "You know?" "He called earlier, tried to get me to agree to a meeting without you present, said it would be better for everyone if we could work this out as adults." "What did you say?" I hung up on him. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Linda stood up, brushing dirt from her knees. Her jeans were soaked. Her hair was plastered to her head. She looked exhausted. "Ray, is there any way to fix this? Any way to get our son back?" "I don't know. Maybe, but not while he's controlled by Jessa. And maybe not ever. He used to be such a good kid." "I know. He used to help me in this garden. Remember? He'd complain about the dirt, but he'd help." "I remember." "What happened to that boy?" "I think that boy grew up and decided being good was harder than being convenient." Linda wiped her eyes. Rain or tears, I couldn't tell. We went inside, changed into dry clothes, made dinner, went through the motions of normal life while our family disintegrated around us. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Board meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. We need to discuss interim management structure." I texted back, "I'll be there." Another text, from Eric's blocked numbers. "You're destroying this family and you don't even care." I deleted it without responding. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Linda's breathing beside me, thinking about how 35 years of careful planning had come down to this moment. Everything I'd built, everything I'd protected, now under attack from people who should have been on my side. My son thought I was the villain. Maybe he was right. Maybe the father who destroys his son's life to protect his life's work is the villain. Maybe choosing justice over family makes me the bad guy. Or maybe sometimes villains are just people who refuse to be victims. At 3 a.m., I got up and went to my study, pulled out those 3 binders again, ran my fingers over the documentation. 35 years of patient, careful work. 35 years of following every rule, respecting every law, building something legitimate. I'd done nothing wrong. But doing nothing wrong doesn't mean avoiding pain, doesn't mean keeping your family, doesn't mean your son still loves you. It just means you can look yourself in the mirror. I could look myself in the mirror. That would have to be enough. The courthouse was downtown, a brick building from the 1960s with fluorescent lighting and worn linoleum floors. Linda and I arrived early. Dave met us in the hallway outside the courtroom. "Remember," he said to Linda, "answer questions directly. Don't elaborate unless asked. Be yourself. That's all you need to do." Linda nodded. Her face was pale but determined. Eric was already inside with his lawyer, Richard Holbrook. He didn't look at us as we entered, just stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Jessa sat behind him, wearing a navy dress and too much perfume. She glared at us with undisguised contempt. The judge was a man in his 60s named Harrison. He looked tired and skeptical of everyone. "This is a petition for financial oversight," Judge Harrison said, reading from documents. "Mr. Eric Cole alleges his mother, Mrs. Linda Cole, is being financially manipulated by his father. He requests the court appoint an independent financial advisor to oversee Mrs. Cole's assets and decisions. Mr. Holbrook, you may begin." Holbrook stood. He was smooth, polished, the kind of lawyer who probably practiced his concerned expressions in the mirror. "Your Honor, this case is about protection. Mrs. Linda Cole is a kind, intelligent woman who has been married to Raymond Cole for over 40 years. But over the past several years, we've observed concerning patterns. Mr. Cole has systematically isolated his wife from family support. He's controlled access to financial information. He's convinced her to sign documents without proper legal review. Most concerning, he recently forced her to cut off contact with her only son, my client." "That's not true," Linda said quietly. Judge Harrison looked at her. "Mrs. Cole, you'll have opportunity to testify. Please wait." Holbrook continued. "We have documentation showing Mr. Cole transferred significant assets into his sole control. Documentation showing he made major financial decisions without consulting his wife. Documentation showing a pattern of manipulation disguised as protection." He pulled out papers, bank statements, transfer records, things I recognized, legal transactions I'd made over the years, managing our family finances. Taken out of context, they looked suspicious. Like I was hiding money from my own wife instead of just organizing our assets efficiently. "We're asking the court to appoint an independent advisor," Holbrook concluded. "Someone who can ensure Mrs. Cole's interests are protected, regardless of Mr. Cole's intentions." Dave stood for our side. "Your Honor, this petition is frivolous revenge. Mr. Eric Cole is angry his father refused to give him money. So he's weaponizing concern for his mother to attack his father financially. Mrs. Linda Cole is competent, independent, and fully aware of all financial decisions. She'll testify to that directly." "Call your first witness," Judge Harrison said. Holbrook called Eric. Eric took the stand, swore in, sat down with perfect posture, looking earnest and concerned. "Mr. Cole, describe your relationship with your mother." "It's always been close. She raised me, supported me. We talked regularly until recently." "What changed?" "My father. He started shutting me out, refused to let me visit, claimed I was trying to steal from them, which is completely false. He convinced my mother to cut off contact." "Did your mother express desire to cut off contact?" "No. She was confused. Said my father told her it was necessary. But she didn't understand why." "Did you attempt to repair the relationship?" "Multiple times. I went to their house, I called. I tried to explain I was just concerned about their future. My father had security remove me. Literally, private security." Holbrook showed photos, images of the security officers outside our house, taken from Eric's phone, made us look paranoid and aggressive. "What about financial concerns?" "My father lives very modestly. Small house, old vehicle. I worried they didn't have adequate resources for emergencies. When I tried to discuss it, He became hostile, accused me of terrible things. I realized something was wrong. Either he was hiding financial problems, or he was manipulating my mother to consolidate control. Dave cross-examined. Mr. Cole, did your mother sign documents transferring her assets to you? For her protection, yes. Did you explain what those documents actually did? I explained they would protect her. That's not what I asked. Did you explain specifically that they transferred control of her accounts to you? I explained the general purpose. So no, you didn't explain specifically. I didn't want to confuse her with legal details. You lied to her. Objection, Holbrook called. Sustained, Judge Harrison said. Dave shifted tactics. When was the last time you visited your mother before the incident with security? A few weeks before. What was the purpose of that visit? To check on her. Did you ask for money? I discussed financial planning. Did you ask for money? Eric hesitated. I asked if they'd consider helping with a business investment. How much? $50,000. Did they give it to you? No. So you left angry. I left disappointed. Because they wouldn't give you money. Because they wouldn't plan for their future. Dave pulled out his phone. Your Honor, I'd like to play a voicemail Mr. Eric Cole left his mother 3 days before the security incident. Judge Harrison nodded. Dave played the audio. Eric's voice clearly frustrated. Mom, I'm done begging. If Dad wants to be stubborn, fine, but don't expect me to keep supporting you both. Starting today, you eat your own food. Stop thinking I'm going to keep bailing you out. The courtroom was silent. Eric's face flushed red. Mr. Cole, Dave said, that sounds like a man angry about money, not a man concerned about his mother's welfare. I was frustrated. I didn't mean it literally. You told your mother to eat her own food, to stop expecting support, and 3 days later you filed this petition claiming you're protecting her. Does that seem consistent? I was emotional. It doesn't change that I'm concerned. It changes everything. This petition isn't about protection. It's about retaliation. Your father wouldn't give you money, wouldn't let you control your mother's assets, so you're using the court to punish him. That's not true. Then explain the voicemail. Eric didn't answer. Dave sat down. No further questions. Holbrook looked shaken but recovered. Your Honor, we'd like to call Mrs. Linda Cole to the stand. Linda walked to the stand calmly. She swore in, sat down, folded her hands. Mrs. Cole, Holbrook began, how would you describe your marriage? Happy, stable. We've been together 43 years. Does your husband control your finances? We manage them together. But does he make decisions without consulting you? Sometimes. I trust him to make good decisions. Have you reviewed all financial accounts recently? I have access to everything. I review what I need to. So you haven't reviewed everything. I haven't needed to. I trust my husband. Holbrook leaned forward. Mrs. Cole, has your husband ever prevented you from seeing your son? Linda's expression hardened. No, Eric isn't welcome in our home because of his behavior. That was our joint decision. What behavior? Lying, stealing, manipulating, all documented. Stealing? He convinced me to sign documents under false pretenses, documents that transferred my accounts to his control. Did you tell him no? I signed because he told me they were insurance paperwork. If I'd known what they really were, I would have said no. So you didn't read what you signed? I trusted my son. That was a mistake. Holbrook paused. Mrs. Cole, do you feel pressured by your husband? Pressured to what? To testify today, to support his position. I support my own position, which happens to align with his, because we're both victims of our son's greed. That's a harsh assessment of your own child. It's an accurate assessment, I wish it wasn't. But facts are facts. Holbrook tried a few more questions, but Linda remained calm, clear, and consistent. When Dave's turn came, he kept it brief. Mrs. Cole, are you competent to manage your own finances? Yes. Do you want this court to appoint a financial advisor? No. Do you believe your husband manipulates you? No. He respects me. He consults me. He trusts me, which is more than I can say for my son. Thank you. No further questions. Judge Harrison called a recess. We went to the hallway. Linda was shaking slightly. You did great, I said. I hated that. Hated having to prove I'm not an idiot. Nobody thinks you're an idiot. Holbrook was reaching. After the recess, Judge Harrison returned. I've reviewed the evidence and heard testimony. I find this petition lacks merit. Mrs. Linda Cole is clearly competent. Her financial decisions are made jointly with her husband, with full awareness and consent. There's no evidence of manipulation or coercion. Petition denied. Eric stood up, chair scraping loudly. This is bullshit. Mr. Cole, Judge Harrison said sharply, control yourself or I'll hold you in contempt. Eric grabbed his jacket and stormed out. Jessa followed, shooting us one final glare. Holbrook collected his papers. We'll appeal. Good luck with that, Dave said. Outside the courthouse, rain had finally stopped. Gray sky was breaking up, showing patches of blue. Linda took my hand. It's over. 3 down. None to go. Can we go home now? Actually go home without waiting for the next attack? Yes, let's go home. We drove in silence. Comfortable silence this time, not the heavy silence of stress. When we pulled into our driveway, I noticed something. Eric's Tesla was parked across the street. Again. Ray, Linda said. I see him. Eric got out of his car. He walked toward us slowly, hands in pockets. He looked defeated, smaller somehow. Dad, Mom, can I talk to you? We just spent 6 hours dealing with your lawsuit, I said. What more is there to say? I'm sorry. Linda made a small sound. Hope or skepticism, I couldn't tell. You're sorry, I repeated. I am. I was wrong. About everything. The accounts, the lawsuit, all of it. Jessa convinced me you were trying to cut me out. And I believed her because it was easier than admitting I was being greedy. So now what? We pretend the last 3 months didn't happen? No. I know it's not that simple. But Dad, I don't want to lose you both. I don't want this to be how our family ends. Linda stepped forward. Eric, are you really sorry? Or are you sorry you lost? He met her eyes. Both. Maybe. I don't know. I'm sorry for what I did. And I'm sorry it didn't work out the way I planned. Are those the same thing? No, I said. They're not. Then I guess I'm sorry I hurt you. Whether or not I regret the strategy, I regret the damage. That's honest, at least. I'm trying, Dad. This is me trying. I looked at Linda. She looked back at me. I could see the question in her eyes. Do we give him another chance? I didn't know. Forgiveness is complicated. Eric had lied, stolen, attacked us legally, but he was also our son, the boy we'd raised, the man we'd hoped he'd become, even if he hadn't quite made it there yet. Come inside, Linda said. We'll talk. Linda, I started. Ray, let's talk. We went inside, sat in the living room, Eric on the couch, us in chairs, déjà vu from his last visit. Tell me about Jessa, Linda said. Eric shifted uncomfortably. What about her? Is she pushing you to do these things, or are you making your own choices? It's complicated. She has strong opinions. And her family, they're used to a certain lifestyle. When you guys wouldn't help financially, she got angry, said you were being selfish. I tried to defend you, but she kept pushing. So you let her push you into attacking us. I thought I was protecting my marriage. By destroying your relationship with your parents? I thought I could have both. I was wrong. I leaned forward. Eric, where does Jessa think you are right now? I didn't tell her I was coming. Why not? Because she'd tell me not to. She thinks apologizing makes me weak. What do you think? I think not apologizing would make me worse than weak. It would make me them. Them? The Bramwells, Logan and Arthur, people who'd rather destroy relationships than admit they were wrong. I don't want to be that. It was the most honest thing I'd heard him say in years. Maybe the most honest thing since he'd gotten married. What happens when you go home? I asked. When Jessa asks where you were? I'll tell her the truth. That I came here, that I apologized, that I'm trying to fix things. She'll be angry. Probably. And then? And then I deal with it. This is my family. You're my parents. She needs to accept that, or we need to figure something else out. Linda reached across and took Eric's hand. We love you. We always have. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. If you want to be part of this family again, you have to earn it. I know. Tell me how. Start by being honest. Stop lying about documents. Stop scheming. Stop treating us like obstacles to your financial planning. I can do that. Can you? I asked. Because we've heard promises before. I know I've given you reasons not to trust me. All I can say is I'm willing to work to get that trust back, if you'll let me. I stood up and walked to the window. The sky was clearing, blue patches expanding. Rain had washed everything clean, leaving it sharp and bright. You understand we're not giving you money, I said without turning around. I understand. You understand we're not restructuring our finances to benefit you. I understand. You understand Linda and I make our own decisions about our own lives. I understand. I turned back to face him. Then we can try. Slowly, carefully, with boundaries. But we can try. Eric nodded, tears in his eyes. Thank you. He left shortly after. Linda and I stood on the porch watching his car disappear down the street. Do you believe him? Linda asked. I want to. That's not the same as believing. No. But it's a start. We went back inside, made dinner, ate in comfortable silence. The house felt lighter somehow, like tension had been draining away without us noticing. My phone buzzed. Text from Dave. Congratulations on today's win. All 3 lawsuits dismissed. You're officially done with legal challenges. I showed Linda the message. She smiled, genuine and warm. Done, she said. Really done. For now. Ray, can't you just accept the win? I'm trying. But accepting the win meant letting my guard down, and I wasn't sure I remembered how to do that anymore. The last 3 months had been constant fighting, constant vigilance, constant preparation for the next attack. Now there was no next attack, just silence, just peace. It felt wrong. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Linda slept beside me, breathing steady and calm. I tried to relax, tried to let go of the tension. Couldn't do it. My mind kept running through scenarios. What if Eric was lying? What if this was another manipulation? What if he went back to Jessa and they planned something worse? What if I'd just made a terrible mistake by letting him back in? But what if I hadn't? What if this was real? What if I'd just gotten my son back? I didn't know. And not knowing was harder than fighting. Fighting, I understood. Fighting had rules. Fighting had clear objectives. This was different. This required faith. Required believing people could change. Required trusting that sometimes sorry actually means sorry. I wasn't good at faith. But maybe I could learn. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, Julia Vance would run her first full executive meeting as permanent CEO. Tomorrow, ColeDynaTech would continue without the Bramwells. Tomorrow, Linda and I would try to rebuild something resembling a normal life. Tomorrow. For now, I just lay in the darkness, listening to rain that had started again, and wondered if peace was always this uncomfortable.